Hello, stamping friends. I hope you are having a great day. Welcome to Learning with Friends. I am Pat Fairless from Fairless Stamp and Flair, and it is my normal Thursday Learning with Friends video at 10 a.m. And I am so glad you're here. I'm excited to share with you this technique today. It is called Impressions of Tarnished Foil. I always have to look at the name a minute. And it's a lot of fun. It needs a few tools to do it, but I think it's worth it in the end. It's makes some beautiful backgrounds for your cards. So let's turn the camera down and go ahead and get started. All right. This is the card I'm going to try to demonstrate for you today. And I'm calling it the Lord's Blessings. May the Lord bless you and keep you. It is from a stamp set called Courage and Faith in the current annual catalog. And this technique is called Impressions of Tarnished Foil. And what we need for that are some foil cardstock, StazOn ink black. Probably could use like a dark brown or something, or try something different depending on the color of your foil. I'm going to use black. We also need Versamark because we will be doing heat embossing. And we need an embossing folder and metallic embossing powder. And of course, our heat tool and our Stampin' die cut machine, right? So let's go ahead and start. I am going to use gold foil today. I will show you 3 cards. One was made with silver foil and one was made with rose gold foil, but you can do this with any color foil you have. So the first thing we do is we take our StazOn and we are going to drag it across our cardstock, okay? My card is landscape. I'm going to drag it vertically. I don't think it really matters. This is just to kind of give it a little bit of an antique look. And we're just going to use our ink pad to do that. Now, I prefer not to have one that's super juicy. So when I drag it, I'm going to get some striations or lines. If it's not too, if you need it a little darker, just push a little harder. But we don't want a lot of this. So, and we will have to drag it a few times until we get enough that it looks like what we want it to look like. Again, I'm just kind of making some light streaks. Add as much or as little of this as you want. And I have a fairly dry StazOn. So I'm going to call that good. I think you can probably see that. So that is step number 1. And the next thing we are going to do is dry emboss this with an embossing folder. And I'm going to use the exposed brick embossing folder. And I'm just going to put this in here. Now you want to make sure that your StazOn ink is dry. It dries pretty quickly. You can test it by running your finger and see if it, make sure it doesn't smear. And it's fine. Like I said, but if you had a wetter ink pad, you might either want to hit it with a heat tool or just set it aside for a couple of minutes to dry. The main reason for that is you don't want to get the StazOn on the ink, the StazOn ink on the inside of your folder. So let me go ahead and grab my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I need, this is a 3D embossing folder, so I need plate number 1 and plate number 4. And we'll just make our sandwich. Good practice when you're doing embossing is just to always stagger your plates. If you can see that, it just helps it to feed through your machine, whether you have this full-size one or if you have our cute little mini, I've got a couple of those. I love it. But I've seen people indicate they have a hard time getting it started. But if you stagger your plates, I have not had an issue. So now our foil with the black stays on is dry embossed. And you don't see a lot of the black, but don't worry. We're going to do a lot more steps to this. So our next step is to take our Versamark pad, and we are going to add some, I'm going to use silver and copper. Again, you can use whatever metallic foil you want. We're just kind of trying to make this look like tarnished foil. So I'm going to drag a little of this on here kind of randomly. I'm going to start with silver, and I don't want silver every place. And we can always add more. So I'm just going to dump some silver foil on here. Okay, so I'm going to pick this up, and if you can see, because my Versamark pad is square, I have lines where I have this, and if you want it to have lines, it almost looks like I have a square down here and a square up here. This one's a little bit better. I might have pushed a little hard, but just take your finger, or you could use a brush. I just like to use my finger. And any place you see a line, if you don't really want a line, if you want it to be more of an organic look, which is kind of what I'm after, just rub it with your finger, and that will take those lines away. And now we are going to heat emboss this, and I will apologize for the noise. You do have to be careful as you emboss foil. There is a lamination on it, and it will, if you hold the heat gun in too long in one place, especially along the edges, it can actually start to delaminate. So as soon as it starts to turn silver, hopefully you can see it turning silver, then just move on to the next step. It also keeps you from overcooking the embossing powder and losing the shine. Add a little here. You do have to be careful. This foil does get a little warm. I forgot my tweezers, so I'm being careful with my fingers here. So that is basically step number 3. The first thing was we dragged black stays on. Then we dry embossed it with our embossing folder. And I don't remember if I said the name of that embossing folder. It's Exposed Brick 3D embossing folder. So this is where we're at now. We've got gold and some silver embossing. And now I'm going to come back, and I am going to apply some copper embossing powder. So again, we're just going to take our stays on pad, and I'm going to drag a little here, and we can overlap the copper over the silver if we want. Now, if I wanted to add more silver, I can. But I'm going to go with this for now, and we'll see what it looks like. You can always add more. Obviously, it is much more difficult to take it away. Okay, so I think you can see that. And once again, you can see I've got lines where my Versamark pad hit. So just take your finger and rub it on that. If you think you have maybe too much in a spot, too much powder in a spot, you can also rub some off. And again, we're not trying to cover the whole thing. We're just trying to get layers of varying colors. So get my heat tool back. Versamark out of the way. And let's emboss the copper. Just working my way around. Once I see the copper shiny, then I move on. You also have to be careful because the foil, I mentioned the delamination issue if you overheat it, but it also does get a little warm. So just be careful. If I'd been smart, I would have grabbed my tweezers. But I'll be honest, every time I do a video, I forget something. Never fails. Okay, so let me see if you can see this. I think hopefully it shows up pretty good, and you're now able to see copper, silver, and gold. I've got gold areas that I did not cover. So it's looking pretty. I think I might have missed a corner down here. Okay, I like that. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Wipe this off a bit. I hate gritty workspace. Does that bother anybody but me? I always feel like it's all over me. So now the last step, and again, like I said, if I wanted more of one color embossing on here or feel like I didn't get good enough coverage, I can always go back and add more. But now the last step, once you're happy with all your embossing, is you're going to take your StazOn pad again, and we're going to drag it back over this one more time. And we're going to highlight areas. It'll highlight the embossed surfaces. We can also add a little black around the ink, which around the edges, which kind of gives a tarnished look, right? So let's just go ahead. And now I'm just going to kind of rub it randomly. And pick up the black. Now again, because my StazOn, this particular one, is relatively dry, I'm having to press fairly hard on here. I have another StazOn pad here with me. This one I think I inked up a little bit. So I'm just gonna hit the areas where I want some black. This will also highlight areas where you have like your roughness from your embossing powder, if you can see that. Sometimes we get some, because I didn't do a solid full coverage embossing, there's like just a roughness created, and this, you can use this to help pick up some black on those edges. I usually like to take it and just ink around it a bit as well. Again, this is totally whatever your preference is, how much black, how little black you want. Okay. Let me try to get right there in the middle on some of those raised embossed areas. Okay, so that is my completed impression of tarnished foil. So let me go ahead and bring in that card that I made with that. You saw it on the tutorial. I used copper clay. I did matte it with black, which really makes this kind of pop. And then my black cardstock here that I used with the Nested Essentials dies. I embossed silver. I could have embossed gold. I could have embossed copper. Again, I just kind of mixed it up. I put a little gold ribbon. I did cut a mat out of foil for my sentiment. And then on the inside, I just kept it very plain so I can have plenty of room for a note. Just added a little gold foil strip. And to decorate my envelope, I took a piece of the copper clay, put on a scrap of black, and then I embossed that with the same embossing folder. I embossed it first, and then I adhered it to the flap. It just makes it a little easier to run through the embossing folder. You can emboss the flap too, but I put that on then with some adhesive. So that is my first card. The second card I want to share with you is made with silver foil. And this one uses the Painted Posies embossing folder. One variation on this technique is before you dry emboss the foil, you can stamp images on here. And emboss them, heat emboss them. So I did stamp a couple little butterflies on here. They were from the Easter Bunny stamp set, I believe. And I embossed those with gold on my silver foil. And then I proceeded with the steps that I just showed you. The brushing of the black stays on, the dry embossing with the Painted Posies. And then on this one, I added gold and copper embossing powder. So didn't put a sentiment, didn't think it needed one. On the inside, I can always fill that out at some point in the future. I used a little piece here on the decorative strip from, I think it's called, I forget the name of that. I think it's called Distressed Gold Specialty Paper. I thought it kind of went along with the embossing powder. So, and again, here on the envelope, I used the Mossy Meadow, like I used for my card here, and added a strip of gold and then embossed it with that same folder to tie the two pieces together for a nice set of stationery. So that is my second card. And my last card I'm going to share with you. This one just might be my favorite. The colors are so pretty. I started with rose gold foil on this one, and I used our quatrefoil tile embossing folder. And the way I created this one is I actually, of course, did the black stays on. I then added embossing powder in strips, as opposed to doing it like I did the one I showed you today here, where it was just kind of an all-over pattern. This one, I used silver here at the bottom. I used copper up here at the top. And then the center is gold. So now I put very little copper up here because I wanted the rose gold to really show through. Rose gold and copper's kind of similar. But I added it in kind of diagonal stripes. And then I used leaves dies from Season of Sheep down here at the bottom just to accent my little sentiment. That was also cut out from Nested Essentials dies, and a little double bow in the silver, simply elegant trim, I think it's called. And on the inside, I added a strip of rose gold foil, and it's a birthday card. So I added a birthday sentiment. And again, here on the flap, I again used rose gold foil with Blackberry Bliss. This card is Blackberry Bliss. So I did my flap with that. So those are my 3 cards. Get those all in here so you can see them all. And I hope you liked that technique. It is definitely not difficult, but I think it makes beautiful backgrounds. And once you get that background made, you really don't need to do very much else to make your card. Add a sentiment if you choose, or don't add a sentiment and just use your sentiment on the inside. So it's kind of up to you. It doesn't need a lot, and you really don't want to cover up that beautiful technique sheet that you just made. So I do tend to make my technique sheets often a little larger than my finished size. Obviously, you don't have to cover the whole card. You could just make it an accent piece as well. So however you like it, it's very versatile. And I hope you give it a try. I hope you have fun with it. If you like this technique, will you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my blog? I'd love to have you subscribe and continue to come back each week and learn new things with me. This is Learning with Friends. So I appreciate you guys and have a great week. Thank you.